It's information. Do I think it's final? I know it's not final.
But we're expanding. But I've talked to monks where they're like, no, it's still a distraction.
Tibetan monks were clearly saying you can ignore when reality shifts. Things I was witnessing and talking to my neighbors and friends, and everybody could find to talk about it with, physicists too. And the monks had the most interesting perspective to me because they're saying, like, at the same time, a whole bunch of us do remember the cornucopia on Fruit of the Loom label, and we'll be like, okay, that affected me. But some people will say, like, no, it never had a cornucopia. This isn't, the kidneys are not there anymore. They've moved up. So they're actually a little bit higher than they used to be. It's not just an evolutionary jump, it's a big quantum jump for the entire 8 billion population of the planet.
I know. So, do you have anything to say to that? So, when it comes to like quantum leaping and that science of excitement, right? Getting excited, is getting excited going to guarantee that you quantum leap?
I don't find that it guarantees it, but there's an energy that's distinctive that occurs when I can feel that reality is shifting, that a quantum jump is occurring. Like one example that comes to mind is when I was doing a weekend retreat with Paula Harris in Crestone, Colorado. It's like the Himalayas of the United States. It's really high altitude. It's almost as high as the Himalayas themselves. Looks like the Himalayas,
Oh.
always snow covered mountains. But it's about 5 hours away from civilization. So I'm just setting the stage. So after we'd been sharing a little apartment together, Paula and I, and I'd left her suitcase she'd put in the car cleverly. Mine was still in the what now turned out to be a locked apartment, and the key code did not work on the front door. It's like it had switched off or something. So it was
Mhm.
one of those fancy little front door key codes. And then Paula looked at me, and okay, this is a very, I don't know what happened first. I think she looked at me and she said, I locked the back door. We're locked out. And she was saying, it's going to take 5 hours for the locksmith to get here. And then
Mm.
he'll do what he does. And then we'll drive 5 hours. We're going to be so late to get back because if we started driving at 3 in the afternoon, we'd arrive at 8 and have dinner with friends. If we wait till you see the picture. If he shows up at 8, then we're arriving at 2 or 3 a.m. or something. And she was horrified. And I said, Paula, we just talked about oneness and consciousness all weekend. And I said, but you know what's really exciting? I'm feeling this energy that only happens. It's not excitement. It's like this, it's like, well, it feels like goosebumps, and it's this very specific kind of Kundalini energy that's just running right through me. Just thinking about it is happening right now. And I said, when this is happening, anything I'm thinking and that I need always happens. And then she put her hand on my shoulder and she said, but Cynthia, I locked the back door. And I said, I know, Paula, but this is something I've really had good experiences with. Never mind. Even if it's locked, no problem. It's going to open when I'm feeling this energy. I'll just walk around back and open it. You see, and I'll let you in the front door. Well, she was slowly following me, it turns out. So I'm just in meditation and basically talking to the absolute, saying, thank you, thank you, thank you for opening this, but feeling that rush of energy. Not
Mhm.
excitement exactly, more like just really strong energy. I can look now, it's a sliding glass door. I can see it's locked. Like I'm looking at it and like, does that bother me? No, it's like the envelope with those bad news. Same.
Mhm.
What I'm Wigner observing Schrodinger. It's like, nah, it doesn't matter. So I walk up there and I'm still feeling this rush. It's the energy that matters, totally. And then I just push on that locked door, and for no apparent, it doesn't make sense. It's totally against all logic. I know that. I'm pushing it, and it's just opening. But I've always experienced things like that. This is like putting your hand through something solid, which I've done that. I've put my hand through clothing and touched my skin. So I've had all these weird quantum type experiences when the energy is flowing. Is it excitement? Not really. I wouldn't call it excitement. And I know people are doing that because they're doing kind of like law of attraction, like you raise your vibe, you match the energy, blah blah blah. Okay, but I would tend to agree with the monks. Like, is it going to last? I'd say that's a good question. And the thing about excitement, if you're sort of fixating on that, people read that different ways. If excitement to you means that Kundalini rush, okay, then that's right. But if it's excitement, like I'm going to rev myself up, and um, I've recently tried to do that because I was trying that with an experiment with ions with Dean Radin. When I had an interferometer, I was one of 50 people selected to do an experiment. And oh, anyway, but that door opened. That was the story. Total, as I expected, it worked perfectly. But the quick story about the interferometer experiment with Dean Radin and ions. I was one of 50 people selected on the sigil experiment that he conducted in 2024, and he just finished. The paper got accepted in a physics publication this year, and he was screening. He went through thousands of applicants to find 50 people that meditated and or practiced magic, and some people he just knew. He's like, okay, come on in. Like, I know you. You're like, you're in. And then he looked at what we were able to do to influence a very sensitive device. An interferometer is similar. It's a physics device, and he built them himself. And the one that I got was copper wire wrapped, so it was in a Faraday cage. I knew that when I saw it. And like the envelope, do I care? Nah, I don't care. It's like, yeah, no problem. And we got 10 runs that we would select, like, okay, this run counts. I'm going to try to influence it with my mind alone and with feedback on a computer screen, which emitted a certain tone of pitch, as you could sort of see the line going up, and sort of like the song. To me, it sounded like angels singing as it went higher. A little light on the box would light up white. I can't touch the box because that would make bumps, and it's the most sensitive device we can create, an interferometer measuring the interference of light with itself. So even if a car drives in front of your house, it's going to affect the thing. So you can't touch it or mess with it, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And so it has a long warm up period and everything. So I'm working with this little device that I can't touch. I can just with my mind alone influence it. 9 out of 10 times it was going great. One of those times I tried to do this thing of excitement. I was thinking, hey, I got an idea. I'm going to do the Kundalini ramp up of the energy in advance. And then I will come in and do this. And it'll be the best run ever because they're pretty good, but I can really go, do an amazing job. Instead of doing a test run, I did a final run. So it was one of the 10 that counted. And it was a complete disaster. All the others were great. That one, it was almost like I was trying to sabotage the experiment. And I immediately sent an email to Dean Radin and I said, I'm so sorry. I told him what happened. And he says, live and learn. And I just felt terrible at the time. But then I came to realize what I'm talking about with you right now. Is excitement going to affect something? I've learned that if it's something, I would agree with the monks. It's like, are you going to get a long term answer, a result? And is it really genuine, is what I would ask. Like, it's so strange because I was doing exactly what I know to do. I know how to run energy. I was doing it correctly, but it's showing me that to do that in advance and then to join something that's happening in real time, it's not ever going to be as good as just showing up, being yourself, and being in that present moment. So this is such an interesting question you asked. I'm sorry, I'm going all over the place.
No. And I'm over here taking notes. You said how to run energy. So let's talk about that energy real quick. Cause that's something that I just had an epiphany about. Because the past, past couple of years, I've been, on the quantum leap thing, law of attraction type stuff, doing what everybody is telling me to do. And, sometimes it works, sometimes it really doesn't. And then also like trying to navigate with that inner compass. So one thing that I've been doing is meditating with a crystal. And I noticed something the other day when I had, because when you're meditating, I do clear my mind, but then there's some times when I do meditate intentionally to receive an answer to
Mm-hmm.
something. And so usually when I do that, I have like different, thoughts, different ideas come to me. And I was sitting there meditating, doing that, and an idea came to me. But then my energy changed. Like I just felt energetic. I don't know how else to explain it. I don't know if it's exactly what you have been experiencing, but for me, it's just that's all I can explain. That's all I can say about it. Like it's not, like I said, it's not excitement. It's just like I don't know. It's like your energy just gets it's like particles expanding. That's how I think that's the best way to put it. Um but it does, for me, it doesn't last. It's like or not yet at least. But it's like a couple of moments. Sometimes I'll just feel, I don't know, like I always say, like I just feel high. It's like a body high, but it's not like an adrenaline rush, right? I don't know, Anyway, so
Yeah.
my question is so when you talk about, how to run energy, because it seems to be that energy that is allowing us to attract or to, I don't even want to say attract. It's more you're getting more in tune with the reality that you're surrounding yourself with, right? Um how do you run that energy? How have you created a method for this, or
Well, the thing I personally do the most is just go into I slow my thought. The key is connecting with the ultimate source of energy. What is that? That would be the absolute, the infinite, eternal. So basically, some people would call that God or the Tao or whatever you want to call it. It's quite real. And my favorite way to get there currently is just to slow thoughts down to a stop, go into sort of a state of nothingness, and park and hang out there. If I can hang out there for usually in about 20 minutes the first time, like if you do this and you're wondering how long is this going to take, it's going to take like at least 20 minutes, I would say, the first time. And the more you train yourself to do this, then you can actually get to that point much quicker, because it's like neurons that fire together wire together, and you're training yourself like, I'm going to go into the nothingness where no thoughts exist. What you do is time starts expanding, you start expanding. That sense of joy is not ephemeral anymore. It feels almost as good as being between lives and being dead again. It's, I know that may sound nuts, but if you remember that experience, it feels the closest to it that I've ever been able to, methodologically approximate. So if there's a system or a technique, I think this is the go-to. This is also the best go-to if you feel like reality's kind of crummy. If you want to go into something and come, it's kind of like going in, like I'm just going to come out a different door and observe again. Like you look at the envelope, I don't like that. I want to observe it. And you're Wigner and like, oh, that's no good either. I'm going to go back into this nothingness and I'll come back out. I'll be Wigner again. So you can keep doing that until you get like a clean observation, like, it's good. And I feel the energy and I'm keeping the energy even as I come out of the meditation. So I love that technique, but and you can get there lots of different ways. Some people that are visual, not everyone's visual, but you can picture all the thoughts like clouds in your head and just want to get a clear sky. And you might get a thought coming in and just like keep practicing clearing it away. Like for right now, for the next half hour, no thoughts. I'll be fine. And the thoughts are going to insist you're not fine. And you'll just get better and better at like, yeah, I'm fine. And what you'll experience is that expansion experience is just so blissful, and it gets so sweet. It's almost like you don't want to leave it once you start experiencing it. And it's right up there with any of the top energy healing techniques or anything that anybody would be doing to assist you in making a quantum jump. You'll be automatically learning to access that direct line straight to the absolute yourself. And that's that source of energy. If you're wondering how are we getting the energy, we all have access to it. There it is. And it's there for all of us, and we're all capable of influencing external reality. What the scientists in Toronto are noticing is that we are equipped with a blockage built into our brains to prevent us from doing that, moving the cursor on the screen. And you might think, what? Like, oh, they suspected that was the case, so they set up an experiment to test using RTMS, transcranial, whatever, modification or moderation stimulation. And they did a special kind of theta stimulus where they created a temporary lesion they suspected the left frontal medial temporal area would be the player. And they thought there's some kind of interference here. What if we can put like a temporary lesion to block the blockage? Could people then have psychic influence and telepathic ease? Everybody, just every random person on the street. Yes, it turns out they can. They did two other groups of with the participants they had. So some were the placebo group, and then some had some stimulation in a different part of the brain, and no difference in the results. So it is indeed the analytical, rational part of our brain that has a little blockage thing right there that prevents us from knowing that we're influencing all of reality. We can change the weather, we can heal ourselves and others, we can change everything, just like what we're witnessing with the Mandela effect. It's built in. And then if you've got access to this energy, and you don't have to put a brain lesion on yourself or get
yeah,
Neuralink.
I was like, I was like, wait, so
No.
let's apply this knowledge. How are we going to do this safely?
Yeah. Well, that was Dean. Now Dean Radin, his experiment that he published this year, 2025, and that was the experiment that I was involved in last year. So I was inside that experiment. Very fun. So his experiment was showing conclusively that the magicians got good results, not the meditators. So if you're just going om and you're meditating, that's great and it's good for you. But you won't naturally be developing your mind matter interaction abilities. For that, you're going to need a little something extra. And I think the people that are good at it have learned. are learning or in the process of improving the ability to shut down the interference pattern on that, you know, the rational analytical side of the brain. And I know that's true for me. I'm pretty sure it's true for all the others that were successful. He's the director of science at the Institute of Noetic Sciences, based in Petaluma, California. And if you go to his website, you can find the paper because he's so profligate and he produces so much great research. So this is just one of many things that he's currently
What is
done.
the name of the abstract that you're talking about?
I just published it today in my newsletter, Reality Shifters. So I'd have to look it up, but we can.
Oh, okay. If I email you, can you add me to that newsletter?
Yeah, it's on
Okay,
my.
cool.
Yep, it's on my website, realityshifters.com. It's the April issue. So yep.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll subscribe. But yeah, okay, cool. Well, okay, so that left, right, so that left logical brain. So he found that there was a block there, and if you block that block, you're unlocked. Okay,
Okay.
so
Well, Dean Radin, that was the Toronto researchers. So there's two studies. The Toronto ones, they did the brain lesion, and they found that, like, here it is. It's on the left, left brain. What a surprise! So people, a lot of us knew that already.
mhm.
Dean Radin was working with 50 participants that they were handpicked. He was really hoping to show that there's an unquestionable positive results, that some people are capable of influence doing mind matter interaction on a device that's obvious if it's been tampered with. So it was a very specific kind of experiment with an interferometer device, showing that there's a kind of quantum effect obviously engaged. And so he wrote it up that way, and it was accepted in a quantum physics journal. So that's pretty cool that went through and it was published. Yeah.
It just got me thinking, just going back to the Toronto and the logical brain blocks. I mean, I think part of it is that, we've been taught to rely on a logical brain, like in school. Like this is it's valued, it's prioritized. People who think logically, it's more valued, and so we try to learn to build that muscle, and they give us practices and lessons that are building that logical brain, but not necessarily the right part. Like if you think of school, we spend more time on this part of our brain than the other part, right? Okay, I'm sure schools now, they have art, they have music, but I think, that's what, 1 hour out of a 6 hour day. And we're taught to think through everything. If you get something wrong, what does our teacher say? Think about it. So I can see why that's built up just naturally through this society that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
So did they ever talk about how to start to unlock that? I would assume meditation is one way of doing that, but are there any other ways that people can practice to detach from that?
Yeah, when you get into quantum jumping and reality shifting, this is a big part of the skill set that's really helpful, is to practice, recognizing that just because you see something, like I was saying, you see the envelope, you want to get good at almost unobserving, if it were. If it were. I mentioned this in my new book about the Mandela effect and its society, that you can, there's an observer effect, but you can also unobserve. You can be a quantum eraser and recognize, just because I see something, I'm not like a Tibetan Buddhist, like, you win $1,000, you lose $1,000, like, So getting to that neutral state, that's what's tricky for us humans. It's like, okay,
Mm.
we're having an emotional reaction here, right? Because there's something triggering. And usually the very thing you want to make the quantum jump on, if you're having an emotional situation, then it's hard to release yourself from it. But you need to be able to do that. So it's important to get to a place where you can basically recognize you're seeing something, but you don't want to get triggered by it. You want to be, instead of triggered, you want to feel either neutral or energized, uplifted. So that's the direction to go.
I wanted to ask you about, the law of attraction, manifestation, and it seems like a lot of people aren't seeing results because they're not necessarily coming from a neutral point.
Right. They're kind of like, it's the equivalent of walking into the martial arts and I just want to beat up that bully today at 4 o'clock, like, well, I don't know how that's going to go. Just give me the steps and I will do this. Like, Okay.
Mhm.
Like, this is not going to go well. And that's really where people come in. They expect that they're going to, develop something that's really Buddha like skills. I'm not saying you have to be Buddha, but it
Mhm.
helps. It helps to do the meditation work. It helps to practice just recognizing how to get to that set point in your mind where you're internally aligned so that what you're thinking about is what you're feeling, is what you're needing. It's like what you want, what you need, what you love, they all line up. And so that's something that doesn't come like, like, oh, just follow the steps and then you line it all up. This is
Mhm.
internal work. And so, and it does
Mhm.
require some commitment. So it's not something like I did follow the steps. Like, well,
Mhm.
let's be honest with ourselves. Where are we really? So being honest with yourself is necessary. Recognizing and listening to yourself is necessary.
Mhm.
Otherwise, no matter what you're visualizing and picturing, if your subconscious is not on board, it's going to be sabotaging everything. Absolutely guaranteed.
So how do you get your subconscious online to get with the program, basically?
Make friends, listen. How do you be a good friend with someone that you're having trouble with? You actually have to listen to them. It may be ugly and you may not want to, but there's
Mm.
but there's going to be stuff coming from your dreams. If you keep a dream journal, stuff's going to bubble up in the dreams and you'll think, I don't want to deal with this. But you can analyze your dreams. That's one easy way. You can just start listening to your body. Like, if you think something and you notice, I'm getting a knot in my stomach every time I think about this certain topic, that's telling you some very important information. And then you can talk to your gut and say, okay, got a bad gut feeling. What is this? It's like, I don't want to do this. Okay, why? This is your job. You're supposed to do this. What feels wrong? I
Mhm.
used to get that when I would work as a project manager, and then that the gut feeling would tell me there's resistance. I can feel it's not me. I'm feeling something resisting. And then I would know, like, oh, nobody's going to help on this project. I was supposed to be, doing certain kinds of matrix management, which means people that don't earn a paycheck from me and they don't report to me are supposed to do what I'm asking them to do out of state. Like, good luck with that. But that's the way I worked at Citibank, and that's what we were doing. And so I could actually tell when I felt that gut tension, like, oh, they're not going to do anything. But that never bothered me because then I just made my to-do list. We were all management by objectives. So at the end of the week, I'm supposed to show how did I succeed. And if I get the gut tension on stuff, then like, well, that's going nowhere. But that's information. I didn't judge it. It's not bad. It's not good. It's like, well, that won't go
Mhm.
anywhere. So then, therefore, I'm going to try doing a whole bunch of other things that may actually go forward. So I'll have 10 things I actually succeeded at by the end of the week. I'm going to, I'll look great. I'll have accomplished 10 things. The other option would be everything that's gut clenching is what people told me to do. My manager said, do this, do this, do this. Most of those went nowhere. So then I think, well, they're going nowhere. I'll be creative. I'm going to add things to the to do list that nobody told me to do. What do you know? Those went through. So I look like a superstar.
That's really smart, actually. I'm like, wait, I'm gonna take that down idea. That's actually, yay! Like, you're like, forget the busy work. Let me do the stuff that I know is actually gonna help me in the future, and then
Yeah.
that's really smart. That's really smart.
So in a way, it's going with the flow, but it's being creative and listening to it too. So the better you get at listening to your gut and to your like people say cold feet before a wedding. That could be quite real. You might actually get cold in your extremities, meaning warning, caution, and maybe that might not be the best marriage. I'm not saying back out of it, but there's probably some information there. So, and those are the kind of things to start listening to if you're making plans, making a decision, just even looking at a situation or solving a problem. If you get these weird feelings, really listen to it and then find, like, is there something that feels better? What is that? Because that's where you're looking at possible alternative realities that are just adjacent, and that's quantum jumping. Really, you can start quantum jumping by noticing, okay, this one feels yucky. I'm listening to my subconscious and getting, instead of getting angry about it, like, what's this interference and these idiots are messing up my day or whatever. We can get angry, but it doesn't do much good. Or we can go into victimhood. That doesn't do much good. Or we can try to be the rescuer and, like, I'm going to, I'm worried about everything and they need help. You don't need to rescue anybody. You can just start feeling like, where does the energy feel like it is flowing? And you can make a jump into that adjacent reality.
Ooh, I love that. I love that. I love that. Okay, sorry. So like, yeah, because as somebody who, you know, had that protector mindset, very early when I was younger, I really had to. I love it because at this point I'm like, okay, we need to stop protecting people. We need to stop being in that energy because it doesn't serve me, and I need to focus on me, right? Um, because I've spent so many years not focusing on me and didn't get me to where I wanted to be, right? So, or I really saw where I could really serve, the world at my highest
Yeah.
level, basically. But I love this because as somebody who likes to problem solve and who's always like, oh, this person has a problem, I got a solution for you. Just do A, B, and C. And it's beautiful. It works with other people. Doesn't really work that well for myself. Don't know why, but I love that because I love it. I love it. Love it. There's so many levels to this. Y'all don't even know. But especially if you're a woman and you have been called to like move more with feeling, I love this because it's really empowering me and it's empowering more women and probably even men who need to navigate life that way too, to move with the feeling. Feel it out. I never really knew what people or really understood what people meant by feel through a situation. But you explained it so beautifully, so eloquently. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. No, seriously though, because I love that. Somebody presents you with a problem, feel through it and really connect to your feeling. And then for some of y'all, listen to the feeling. Okay. Don't ignore it. A lot of people ignore it. And I'm just, I'm talking because that was me. that was me. I was one of those like, I felt it, but I was like, no, 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 I need to do this. And it's just like, come on now. But I really love that. So thank you for that. And really starting to navigate life through that feeling, right? And again, now that I know that energetic feeling, and I think I don't know if it's exactly what you were experiencing or explaining, but now that I know what that feeling is, now I think it's a little bit easier for me to navigate through stuff, whereas before I would like try to navigate through excitement, but it's like I'm not always excited. Like, sorry, like when I wake up in the morning, I'm like, I'm not as excited. So this is like really beautiful and really learning to move with that feeling. This is one thing that I have studied when I studied under master monks. This is one thing that they do have all in common. They're like, move with the feeling. And this is, you talk to astrologers, they talk about how we're in the Aquarian age. It's a more feminine energy. So I mean, really, if you really want to survive, especially the next 20 years, because Pluto's in Aquarius, craziness is going to happen. We have to move with the feeling. We have to move with the feeling. And getting us in tune with that feeling is also going to help us, do that quantum leap. And earlier you were saying, well, actually, that's one question I wanted to ask you. Are humans evolving now? Are we really evolving?
I've been noticing that we are. It's kind of subtle in some ways, and sometimes not so subtle. Like the things that are not so subtle, it seems like they seem like Mandela effects. Like people that used to get sunburned aren't getting sunburned. It's weird, little tiny things. But then you think, well, that's kind of big. Like that's huge, and people are starting to be much more telepathic. I think some of the news stories that we're noticing and the popularity of podcasts like the telepathy tapes. This is indicative that collectively all of humanity we've hit a tipping point of getting into a level of empathy that's going to become the norm. Whereas previously, people who were empathic were the minority. You could actually see it with the Myers Briggs personality test. For example, it actually shows that the percentage of Americans that are intuitive feelers, which translates to empath or people that have empathy, that would be around 20% of the population. I'm expecting we're going to see a big, I think it's already changing, but I think we're going to see a movement as that 22% becomes, much bigger. Those are the same people that experience meaningful coincidences, as studied by Dr. Bernard Beitman, who's a psychologist, and also by myself. I've noticed I've done surveys to find out who are experiencing the Mandela effect, quantum jumps, that kind of thing. And those are, again, the intuitive feelers. The minority of the population, like some like 20%, are experiencing 78 or 80% of meaningful coincidences, reality shifts, quantum jumps, the Mandela effect, all of the above. So this is quite interesting because it seems like the empathy itself is creating. I think it's empathy. If you think about it, what is really happening? You're able to view yourself. It's like that level of conscious agency thing again. It's the Schrodinger with a cat, and then there's you know the guy who's Wigner who's watching him and observing. Like I can see a different thing, so you can observe it. Empathy has a tie-in with the levels of consciousness that head toward enlightenment. And so it's the first step of recognizing that we're all connected. It doesn't mean we're all the same. I think when that to me seems like a mistake, is like I am God. Like nobody would say I am God. That sounds stupid. But we say like we are one. And I think there's a little, just not to put too fine a point on it, but I would recommend maintain the individuality. That's precious. And who you are is special, even as an eternal soul. You have an
Mhm.
eternal spirit, an eternal soul, and it's priceless and irreplaceable. And there's no one like each of us. We're unique, and that's wonderful. Like each monk is different, of course, because they all have different souls too. Yeah, and that's the way it's supposed to be. But when we have empathy, something magic happens because you can start pulling together, even though you know you're different. You start to appreciate that you want that one who's different. Like you love a kitten, you love a puppy. You're not the kitten, you're not the puppy, but you adore them. And that's empathy. It's like realizing I just love people. I love people who are so different. I love these monks who are so different. It's like, are they all what I thought they would be? No. Are they the same? No. And that's awesome. So I know I'm rambling again, but I get excited about the empathy thing. It seems like it's so big and it's so much bigger than we even quite have discovered. But I'm expecting great things from empathy and intuitive feelers and what we're about to see in terms of the population in that movement toward becoming more empathic, more caring. There's going to be more kindness and more compassion. So thank goodness we need it. And I feel like I know, never mind what you see on the news, because I know what people are going to be saying. Like, Cynthia, are you looking at the news? Yeah, 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 yeah. I know. But remember the thing about the envelope.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I told you, you in the right space. Yeah, I talked about this with no, yeah, you with other like guests too. And even people who are in my close circle. Yeah, we just don't watch the news because that's what's happening. It's like, you know, it's people call it like the great split. But that's really what's happening. And I explained to my friends who, aren't really who are kind of more on the fearful end. That's how I'm gonna put it.
Yeah.
I explained to them, I'm like, yeah, and I told them it's gonna get worse, and you're gonna start to see there's gonna be people who are super abundant, super high energy, super, really spreading that and really making it their mission to really shift the world in a different way, and it's gonna be amongst this craziness happening on the other side, and it's important to recognize, because yes, the craziness is happening, but because you're going to still have these people who are expanding. That
Mhm.
expanding is only going to catch more and more people, and it's going to affect more and more people. And then people don't realize too, the people who are expanding, it's not just in the States, it's not just in these westernized countries, it is all over the world. It is in these countries where there are people, these war torn countries that are happening right now. I had a friend saying it's World War III, and I was like, yeah, I believe it. It's not as crazy, or yeah, it's not as crazy as it was the first World War II. Like, it's definitely given like millennial Gen Z World War III. It's not super intense. It's more, like it's like you said, more empathy, right? It's not as crazy, not as inhumane even. I think that was a big thing back in not a big thing, but I think post World War II, they said no more poison gas or whatever, because they saw the effects that it had. And they're like, what, like craziness, like why would you even do this? So just for context, but yeah, but that's what's happening. Like, I don't know, it's like for people who don't understand, like, this is what's happening. So it's like, yes, you can choose to buy into the fear and all of that, and let's not even buy in, because it's happening. There's stuff that's happening around the world that's disgusting, that's that we're aware of, that's inhumane, that's unjust, um and there's ways to really combat that and handle that, right? you can donate. You can donate your time. You can donate your money. You can, really start to push efforts or put your money in the right places to stop that from happening. But complaining about it, it's not going to solve the problem. So like there is ways to do that. But and my point is there's two splits happening. And so you kind of need to just be aware, I think, at this point that that's happening. And I think when people become more aware of that, they'll be like, oh, okay, let me feel, going back to what you're saying, let me feel what feels right. Let me tap into what feels right. But again, people, they really, I don't know, Westerners become so self-absorbed. I'm telling, like, there's people in these countries that are there to, to be that beacon of light. It doesn't have to be a Westerner. Like, come on now. But anyway, sorry. I like we have like such big egos. It's like it's crazy. It's literally insane. Um, but yeah, so I love that you said, what we're evolving to is more empathy, which is beautiful. I think that's a lot of monks, that's their main mission. If anything, they do have their little side quests that they go on, but their main mission is to, kind of ensure or teach empathy and try to get as many people on board as possible. Because I think, yeah, like you said, if more people have empathy, we can really start to have a deeper connection with each other, and I think that'll really solve a lot of the world's problems and issues.
Yeah, I've got a vision of empathy and sanity and compassion and kindness. That would be the where humanity is going. So that evolutionary pathway, it looks like that. Some people also feel like at some point we'll become homo luminous, like light beings, like we'll start radiating light, and that's
Hmm.
possible. Haven't seen too much of that directly happening like immediately. That may be tens of thousands years down the road.
I mean, I've been told I glow, so.
We actually do glow. I've got a book called Aura Advantage, and I've got research in the book that I cite where some people, like you, would walk in a room and it can be measured that you've increased the photons in that room. Now, in contrast, if someone who's depressed came into that same room and they're measuring the photons, they can actually like suck the light out of the room. Like,
Oh wow.
yeah, but we felt that, right? Like you've sometimes met people, like, what is wrong? Like, I just feel like the life force is getting sucked out of me. And, some people say energy vampire, but I think I'm not going to label it. I'm just saying that it's observable and it's a real thing. And so obviously we do emit light. We got photons coming off our faces and hands, the fingertips especially. You can see it in photographs those are quite active energetically. We are light beings. Yeah.
Yeah, even the fingertips, that was one of the first like energetic feelings I had when I got more into energetic work and like qigong. It's
Yeah.
always in the fingertips, and it's so easy. Like yeah, even now I'm like holding my
Oh yeah.
like less than an inch apart, but you can start to feel that energetic field in between your hand and your fingertips. But yeah, those fingertips are like really, really powerful. Um, but yeah, we can talk for a long time about this stuff. But it's important. It's important to know this stuff. And I love the work that you do is interesting. So please continue to do that.
Oh, thank you, Lizua. And I love what you're doing too, and I'm so glad that we're talking today and sharing our conversation with people. I think this is valuable information, and it's fun when we come together like this and share our experiences because it just seems like there's more than there was before, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I would love to have you back on. That would be really great, actually. Because yeah, we didn't even touch the surface. There's like so many other things. Oh yeah, yeah. There's some other stuff that we could talk about. Yeah, but it's like because it's like I said, I've done a lot of studying with monks and just master monks, and so there's so many things that you touched on in this show that I have so many more questions about, and just even relevant experiences. But we're gonna have to save it for another episode. Okay. Yeah, right. We'll just talk about just the monks and the
Thank you
monastic.
so much, Lizua.
But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the show. Y'all make sure to check out Cynthia's freebie in the bio or the description. She has a lot of really cool exclusive videos on quantum leaping and quantum jumping. And remember, she's doing quantum leaping and quantum jumping and a law of attraction in a different way, but I feel like it's more effective. And not just feel like, I think even monks would agree is a little bit more effective than a lot of the stuff that you might see trending on TikTok. So please make sure to check that out, okay? And I love y'all so much as usual. And I will see y'all next week. Peace.